2025 was a brutal year for my watch list. We didn't just lose a few shows, we lost some of the biggest pillars of the last decade. From the end of the Hawkins era to the final,
Hello. You?
the streaming landscape looks completely different now. But here's the silver lining: these stories are finally complete. No more 3 year waits for another season, no cliffhangers left hanging on forever, just full uninterrupted binges. I've narrowed the selection down to 10 TV shows that ended in 2025 that are actually worth your time. Prestige dramas, emotional rides, global phenomenons, and a few shows that maybe overstayed their welcome, but still stuck the landing. Before we jump into the top 10 though, we need to talk about the shows that almost made the list and the ones that were taken away from us way too soon. The ones that almost made it. Alice in Borderlands. If Squid Game left avoiding you and you somehow missed out on this, you're in for an excellent binge. Upload. Surprisingly sharp sci-fi comedy with a hint of existentialism that stuck the landing way better than anyone expected. Bosch Legacy, one of the most consistent crime dramas of the last decade, criminally underrated. Bel Air, a reimagining of the 90s sitcom turned into a drama that had no right to work, yet somehow it did. The Samurai Turned Pretty, cheesy, emotional, nostalgic, and dangerously bingeable teenage romance drama. Solar Opposites, a hilarious, underrated, animated sci-fi comedy that mastered juggling multiple storylines without losing its momentum. Worth watching for the wall subplot alone. Gone Too Soon, The Wheel of Time, amazing high fantasy show that just aired its best season but its numbers weren't high enough. Fingers crossed something else will be announced soon that can fill the hole left in this genre. Resident Alien, a quirky alien in disguise sci-fi comedy with a lot of heart. Poker Face, a modern Columbo that deserved a longer run. Mythic Quest, one of the smartest workplace comedies since The Office. The Cleaning Lady, brilliant surgeon becomes a mop cleaner to fund her son's life-saving treatment. And one more thing before we get into the top 10. 2025 was also stacked with incredible miniseries, some of the tightest storytelling of the year. Titles like The Girlfriend, All Her Fault, Win or Lose, American Primeval, Adolescence, Black Rabbit, The Beast in Me. All brilliant limited series, some of which you'll also see on the main list. And honestly, these miniseries might deserve their own dedicated video in the future. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in watching something like that. But enough about the ones that got away. Let's get into the heavy hitters. My name is Roland, and these are the top 10 shows that ended in 2025 that you can now binge from start to finish. Starting with a man who definitely stayed too long at the party. Number 10. You. 2025 marked the official end of Joe Goldberg's journey, and honestly, it was about time it did. I followed the show since it was a little known series on Lifetime before Netflix turned it into a global obsession. What makes You such a satisfying binge is the momentum of Joe's internal monologue. Penn Badgley has spent years perfecting this blend of charming intellectual and delusional predator, and by the final season, the show stops making excuses for him. It's a series built on the one more episode cliffhanger. Even when the plot gets a bit absurd, the pacing is so tight that you don't care. It's a masterclass in tension and dark irony. If you've been waiting to see if Joe finally gets what's coming to him, the wait is over. The cycle of obsession finally breaks, and watching that descent in one continuous run is much more impactful than waiting years between seasons. It's messy, it's twisted, it's the perfect weekend binge if you enjoy psychological thrillers, unreliable narrators, dark social satire, and obsessive romances. It's a show that isn't afraid to be a little trashy and prestige at the same time. You might not have the perfect ending, but it has a deliberate one, and that counts for something. Number 9. The Sandman. It took 3 years for us to get a resolution to the cliffhanger of season 1, and despite the external scandals surrounding the author that led to an early end of the show, I'm genuinely glad we got a second season to wrap up Dream's journey. Based on Neil Gaiman's iconic comic series, the show brings an incredibly ambitious world to life, one filled with gods, myths, dreams, nightmares, and existential questions about love, mortality, and change. Visually, it's stunning. The production design, costumes, and atmosphere feel carefully crafted, giving the dreaming and its surrounding realms a tangible sense of weight and history. The second season isn't without its issues. It's slower, occasionally uneven, and not quite as sharp and daring as the first season was. But what it does well, it does so beautifully. The story centers around the power vacuum left in Hell after Lucifer, the ruler of the underworld, retires, and it's up to Dream to choose a successor. His role is thematically rich, reinforcing the idea that power, responsibility, and growth are inseparable. Tom Sturridge remains excellent as Morpheus, distant, rigid, and quietly evolving, and the supporting cast continues to elevate the material with their performances. The Sandman feels like a dream you don't want to wake up from, sometimes comforting, sometimes unsettling. And while it's a shame we won't get more, the story we did get stands on its own. If you enjoy fantasy and want something with philosophical depth, this show is absolutely worth binging, especially now that Dream's journey has reached its conclusion. Number 8. 1923. The second chapter of the Dutton family saga came to an end in 2025 with the return of 1923's long-awaited second season. While 1883 showed the brutal journey to the west and the birth of the Dutton Ranch, 1923 showed us what it took to create and hold on to that legacy in an unforgiving world that's rapidly changing. Although part of the Yellowstone universe, this show stands on its own. It's a great watch for anyone interested in a historical western drama centered around legacy and survival. At its core, 1923 is a sprawling historical epic anchored around powerhouse performances. Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren bring immense weight to Jacob and Cara Dutton, leaders wore down by age, violence, and responsibility. They're one of the strongest lead pairings in recent television history, and their presence alone elevates the material into prestige territory. What makes 1923 stand out is how it weaves together its multiple storylines. You have the war for the ranch in Montana, the sweeping and often brutal journey of Spencer Dutton and Alexandra, whose chemistry and commitment to each other you have to see for yourself, and one of my favorites that I have to shout out, the haunting storyline of Tiona Rainwater. Played with raw intensity by Amina Neves, Tiona's arc, being relentlessly haunted by a fanatical priest after daring to defend herself, is one of the darkest and most emotionally powerful threads in the entire Yellowstone universe. This is easily the most graphic, bleak, and adult entry in the franchise. 1923 doesn't romanticize the past. Winter is deadly, progress is cruel, power belongs to those willing to take it. The villains, especially Timothy Dalton's cunning Donald Whitfield, feels genuinely threatening, and the sense of impending collapse hangs over nearly every episode. By the time the final credits roll, 1923 leaves you with that rare feeling of having watched something grand, exhausting, and deeply human. It may not have the pop culture reach of Yellowstone, but in terms of ambition, performances, and thematic weight, this might be the most mature and uncompromising story the franchise has told so far. If you enjoy slow-burn historical dramas with real teeth, 1923 absolutely earns its place on your binge list. Number 7. Cobra Kai. If you told me back in 2017 that a Karate Kid sequel series on YouTube would become one of the most beloved shows of the decade, I would have laughed. But here we are in 2025 and Cobra Kai has officially ended with a world tournament that was everything a fan could want. This show is the definition of a feel-good binge, the kind of show that understands exactly what it is and never pretends to be above it. Watching the relationship between Johnny and Daniel evolve from bitter rivals to reluctant allies to genuine friends is one of the most satisfying long-term character arcs in modern television. The show is ultimately about redemption, about second chances, bad teachers, broken adults, and kids trying to be better than the people who failed them. Almost everyone, from Miguel to Robbie, the legacy villains like Kreese and Silver, gets their moment of growth that feels earned rather than forced. Does it get a bit soapy with the teen relationship drama? Yes, but the fight choreography is consistently top tier, the pacing is relentless, and the heart of the show is so sincere that you will willingly go along for the ride. Cobra Kai balances nostalgia without being enslaved by it, using the past as fuel rather than a crutch. It's fun, fast, emotionally honest, and it ends with the kind of resolution that feels both satisfying and open-ended. If you want a heartfelt show that also delivers an awesome crane kick, this is it. Number 6. The Handmaid's Tale. We finally reached the end of Gilead, or did we? I'll be honest, when they announced the 6th season, I was skeptical. Season 5 ended on a bunch of cliffhangers, and sure, people wanted a better resolution to the story, but taking 3 years, time in which most of the fans moved on, only to potentially deliver something unsatisfying, felt like a massive risk. The final season ended up being mostly good, but it turned out to be a bit of a double-edged sword. It's clear they want to keep milking the IP by setting up a sequel series called The Testaments with that last episode. It's clear though that this move didn't land well with the fanbase. But if you look at the series as a whole, it's a landmark of the streaming era. Elizabeth Moss has won every award under the sun for playing June, and it's entirely deserved. Her performance is a masterclass in subtle internal rage. This show touches on topics like religion, politics, and the subtle horrors of what humans are capable of. It's gruesome and atmospheric, the kind of show that would never have survived on cable TV. While the pacing can be a slow burn grind in the middle seasons, watching it all at once makes June's struggle feel like one continuous epic resistance. It's an important, relevant, and deeply uncomfortable show that isn't for everyone. But as a complete story, The Handmaid's Tale is a landmark dystopian drama. It is a rewarding marathon with a lasting impact for anyone who can stomach the dread. Number 5. Squid Game. Squid Game, the show that turned childhood nostalgia into a global panic attack. Alongside Stranger Things, it was one of Netflix's two massive entertainment pillars of the last decade that officially reached its conclusion in 2025. With the journey of player 456 now resolved, we can finally look at the series as a whole, and what a massive, brilliant cultural moment it was. I'll be the first to admit, the ending was divisive. It feels like divided fandoms was the unofficial theme of 2025 television. I completely understand the argument that Squid Game should have remained a lightning in a bottle single season phenomenon, but I also think the full journey mattered. Seasons 2 and 3 were clearly written as one continuous story, and splitting them up hurt the momentum at the time. Binging them now without months of waiting in between, the pacing feels far more intentional, and Gi Hyun's evolution from a desperate survival into a man trying to dismantle the system from the inside finally gets the breathing room it deserves. What makes Squid Game the undisputed king of the death game genre isn't just the brutality or the tension, it's the commentary underneath it all. This is a show about depth, false choice, and the quiet horror of systems that survive because people keep choosing to participate in them. As the scale expands in the later seasons, the focus shifts from the games themselves to the machinery behind them, the organizers, the spectators, and the moral compromises that keep the whole thing running. It never loses that uncomfortable, grounded grit that made season 1 hit so hard. And it's impossible to overstate the show's legacy. Squid Game didn't just become a hit, it changed viewing habits. It pushed international television fully into the mainstream and proved once and for all that subtitles were never the barrier people claimed they were. It opened the floodgates for global storytelling on a scale Netflix is still benefiting from today. And let's be honest, this isn't the last we've seen of this universe. With the reality show already multiple seasons deep and the season 3 finale clearly positioning the franchise for future expansions, the game is far from over. People might say they're done after the finale, but we all know how this goes. When the next teaser drops, curiosity will win and we'll all be watching. At least I know I will. Number 4. Andor. Andor. Where to even begin? I'm going to make a bold claim. Andor is the best thing to come out of Disney Plus, period. You don't need to be a Star Wars fan to be obsessed with this. In fact, if you strip away the blasters and the TIE fighters, this show is a prestige political thriller that would rival anything HBO puts out. It's the main reason why I love this show. It brought politics back into the limelight of the Star Wars universe. The show follows Cassian Andor, played by a watchful and guarded Diego Luna, who starts out as a jaded, self-serving survivor that gets pulled into the messy, morally gray machinery of the rebellion. Not the romanticized version, but the one built on paranoia, compromise, and people doing terrible things because they believe there's no other option left. Season 1 lays the foundation brilliantly, but Season 2 is where Andor fully comes into its own. Spanning years throughout a tightly structured 4-arc format, the story satisfyingly leads directly into Rogue One, creating a constant sense of inevitability. Knowing how Rogue One ends doesn't spoil the tension, it heightens it. As the series moves towards its predestined conclusion, you find yourself watching the clock of history tick down, seeing how every minor character and political pivot finally snaps into place. Watching the movie immediately after the show is a revelation. It transforms a blockbuster prequel into the earned finale of a much deeper, more complex saga. What truly elevates Andor is its ensemble cast. This is a show where side characters are written like leads. Genevieve O'Reilly turns political maneuvering into nail-biting tension as Mon Mothma. Stellan Skarsgård is magnetic, embodying the cold pragmatism of rebellion leadership. Denise Goh and Kyle Soller make the imperial bureaucracy feel disturbingly real, while Adria Arjona brings emotional grounding and vulnerability to the cost of resistance. And even when familiar Rogue One characters enter the picture, they're used with restraint and purpose, never as empty fan service. The production values are immaculate. You can truly tell that this is one of the most expensive productions in the history of television, estimated around $650 million. The sets feel lived in, the scale is cinematic, and the action carries real consequences rather than hollow spectacle. But the real power of Andor is in its tone. Tense, intelligent, occasionally grimly funny, philosophical at times, always driven by characters and themes. If you love spy thrillers, political dramas, or slow burn storytelling that respects your intelligence, Andor is mandatory viewing. And if you avoided it because you're not a Star Wars person, this is exactly the show that proves you don't need to be one. Number 3. Adolescence. This was one of the big technical and emotional marvels of 2025. If you haven't heard of Adolescence, the series centers around a 13-year-old boy named Jamie who is arrested for the implied murder of a girl from his school, and the devastating ripple effects this accusation has on his family and everyone involved in the investigation. It's a 4-part limited series where each episode is shot in one uninterrupted take. No hidden cuts, no cheating, just raw, sustained real-time tension. Now, that might sound like a cool gimmick at first, and although that technical achievement is incredibly impressive and flawlessly utilized, especially in episode 3, where the tension continuously builds, making a viewer feel uncomfortable by witnessing something that feels like we're not supposed to, it isn't even the show's greatest strength. That lies in its performances. Everyone delivers incredible performances, but there are 2 clear standouts. Stephen Graham as a father grappling with helplessness and denial, and Owen Cooper as Jamie. Cooper delivers something that genuinely feels like the performance of a lifetime, made all the more remarkable by the fact that it's only the beginning of his career. Winning an Emmy at just 15 years old, becoming the 2nd youngest actor to ever do so, his work here is nothing short of astonishing. The tension and dramatic performances he delivers in episode 3 together with Aaron Doherty is spectacular. This role sets him up for a shining future in the acting world without a doubt, and I'll be paying close attention to see what he does next. Adolescence was one of the biggest shows from last year, topping the Netflix charts, becoming one of its most watched shows of all time. But in the eventuality that you haven't watched it yet, it's only 4 episodes that you can finish in one sitting. Please go and give it a shot, you won't be disappointed. It's short, tight, gripping, and the themes and subject matter feel so present that if someone told you it's based on a real event, you wouldn't think to question it. Number 2. When Life Gives You Tangerines. I'm going to be honest, this was almost the number 1 show on this list. It was one of my favorite shows from last year. When Life Gives You Tangerines is easily one of the most underrated shows of 2025. And it genuinely hurts that it slipped under so many people's radar simply because it's a K-drama. If this were an American series, you'd be seeing it everywhere by now. If you never watched a Korean show before, and when I say Korean show, I mean specifically K-dramas. No, Squid Game does not count. Most people wouldn't categorize it as a typical K-drama. Then let this one be the first you watch because this is something special. Set on Jeju Island, the series unfolds as a generational drama in every sense of the word. Literally, it follows a family across 3 generations. Figuratively, it feels like the kind of show that will be passed along through word of mouth for years to come. A future cult classic people recommend when asked for something meaningful. This isn't just a romance or a family drama, it's a story about life itself. Dreams deferred and quietly fulfilled, hardships and resilience, love expressed through sacrifice, and the slow, relentless passage of time. What makes the show so powerful is its restraint. There's no flashy hook, no high concept gimmicks. Instead, it finds its emotional weight in the ordinary. Parents doing their best and still falling short, children growing up faster than they should, and the quiet moments that shape who we become. It will have you laughing out loud one moment and sitting on the edge of tears the next, without any warning signs. I'm personally not a crier, but this show almost got me 3 different times. The performances are exceptional, raw, grounded, and deeply human. The characters are flawed and realistic, each carrying their own regrets and burdens. You don't need to be a K-drama fan to connect with them. Yes, some familiar tropes are still present, and yes, the pacing can feel slow at times, but those elements are easy to overlook when the payoff is dishonest and disearned. This is a slow-burning love story told over the seasons of life, and it understands that real emotional bonds take real time to develop. If you had a difficult upbringing, be prepared. This show will hit close to home. Watching it feels like eating your grandma's cooking on a really bad day, warm, comforting, and restorative, but never dishonest about how hard life can be, even when things seem to be going well. When Life Gives You Tangerines is the kind of series you look back on with fondness years later, the kind you recommend without hesitation to anyone asking for a show that actually means something. A quiet masterpiece, and one that deserves far more recognition than it received. Number 1. Stranger Things. It had to be this. Even with the mixed reviews of the final season, and specifically the underwhelming ending that some considered so bad they made up an entire theory around the secret 9th episode. Even with the long delays and the underwhelming pacing of certain episodes and some of the cringe-inducing scenes, Stranger Things is the cultural juggernaut of our generation. 2025 marked the end of an era. We have watched these kids grow up for nearly a decade, and that legacy carries a weight that no other show on this list can match. Stranger Things isn't just a massive hit for Netflix, it's basically synonymous with the brand at this point. It's moved way beyond just being a show. It's a global phenomenon that's stuck in the hearts and minds of millions. Honestly, it might be the single biggest piece of pop culture from the last decade. From a grounded show in season 1 that started out slow, I remember being there day 1, not knowing what to expect. What I thought will be a small town 80s murder mystery turned into something way bigger than anyone expected it to become. The stakes kept growing, the world kept expanding, the mysteries and unanswered questions kept piling up, culminating into what we have today, a landmark of the entertainment world. A dark, adult-leaning sci-fi series with genuine horror and monsters, both human and otherworldly, Stranger Things leans into increasingly cinematic set pieces drenched in 80s aesthetics that define its tone. Paired with era-appropriate pop songs and iconic synth-heavy score, the show delivers some of the most striking and instantly recognizable moments in television of the last decade. Yet for all its scale and spectacle, it never loses the sense of wonder or emotional grounding that's been there since the beginning. You get the scares, the thrills, and the high-stakes action, but it's the heartfelt moments that often hit the hardest. Over its 5 seasons, Stranger Things built up a dark fantasy world people cared about, filled with characters that people watched grow up in real time throughout the show, making the stakes feel more personal, and it delivered moments that will be remembered long after the debates around the ending of the show will fade into obscurity. Stranger Things might not be remembered for having the best ending to a show, but as a whole series, it has earned its place on the list of the best shows of all time, and it will always be remembered for the legacy it has created and the careers that it started. It may not be perfect, but few shows ever mattered this much to this many people, and that's why it's the number 1 show on this list. So that's the class of 2025. It's weird seeing some of these names officially over, especially the heavy hitters at the top. But honestly, I'd rather have a definitive ending, even if it's a messy one, than a show that never gets an ending or wanders forever. I'm curious though, did the Stranger Things finale ruin the legacy for you, or are you still a ride or die fan? Are you gonna check out the new animated series that they just announced? Did I miss one of your favorite shows? And which of the Gone Too Soon shows are you still bitter about? Let me know in the comments section. This is my first video, so if you enjoyed the vibe, hitting the like and subscribe genuinely helps more than you know. I've got a lot planned for 2026, videos about shows, movies, games, books, all of those and more. Thank you for watching this video, now go find something good to binge. I'll see you in the next one.